welcome to another episode. We have kind of taken a little bit of a break over the Christmas holiday, so we didn't actually film anything in December, but welcome back. This is actually episode 31. This is my second episode with my mom as my co-host, so I'm Ellie and you are?
Morag.
Morag. Great. So, do you have anything to say before we start, or should we just jump into it?
No, I think let's jump into it. I'll follow your lead.
Okay. Do you want to start with a finished object?
Yeah, I can do that. So the last time we met, I was finishing off this band and I'd got to over there. I was going to bend it over and everything.
Yes.
And then I decided that it was too short.
Yes.
So then I added on more and I finished the band and I am now wearing it, and it's got this little tulipy flare bit at the bottom that I designed.
Yeah.
And I love wearing it, and I think that my husband likes it on me
Really?
too. Yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
So I really want to make another one or two.
Oh, that's great. And so you've just put elastic into here.
Yes, that's right. I knitted. So on this side I did a rib, on this side it's just flat.
Yes.
And then I've got a elastic in.
Great.
Yeah. So it's exactly the same front and back, so you can wear it any way you want to.
Yes, that's lovely.
That was that. And
Yeah.
that's my first finished object.
Yes.
Do you want to do one, or do you want me to tell you about my other one?
I'll do some. You've only got two.
Yes.
So do you want to do the other one at the end? Because I've got quite a few.
Yeah.
So I have a few. I'll start off with the ones that I can't actually show you because obviously having been Christmas, I have quite a few gifts which I knit for people and send off to them, and so I have a few things that I'll just insert a picture so you can see what I'm talking about.
I'm wearing one of them.
Yes. So the first thing is some socks for my uncle Anton. They were actually a work in progress last time we spoke, and so I finished those, and those were knit with Lily Rose, and the colorway was called A Storm and What Came of It. And that is a South African yarn that my mom actually helped get and brought over from South Africa for me to knit with. So yeah, I just knit them. They're just kind of standard 2.5mm needles. I use an 80cm circular needle so I can do magic loop, but that's they were pretty straightforward. And yeah, so those have gone off to South Africa already to go be given. I think you gave them to Siobhan.
Yeah.
Yes.
So did you mention Anton and Catherine's?
Well, Catherine's were a finished object last time.
Oh, were they?
I think, unless I finished Anton's last time and then maybe I finished Catherine's this time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Catherine's, I'll put a picture of these as well. Catherine's were also Lily Rose, but they were, so the socks that I knit for Catherine are still Lily Rose, but the colorway is Plump the Hazel Shells.
Interesting name.
Yes, yeah. So both of those have gone off to South Africa to be received. Yeah. And then the next thing I have is my black tam o'shanter, and I don't think I'd actually started it last time, but I did say that I wanted to knit it, and so here it is. It's probably just gonna look like a big black mess on the camera because it's probably not gonna pick up like really the details or anything, and my hair, I can't really wear it over this. It's gonna look a little bit funny.
It actually looks nice like that.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, so this was really quick. So this is my own pattern, which I actually haven't released yet, but it is a pattern that I made, and it knit up really quickly. I literally knit it in an evening. Like,
yeah,
literally.
I was shocked. The next morning you were wearing one, and I was like, is that one that you've already got, or is it, you just whip that up?
Yes, it's actually, yeah, it's a super quick knit, so yeah, I'm really happy with it. And so this I knit in, it's a double knit, it's Stylecraft Special DK, and the color is just their black color, and I knit it with 4mm needles. We're kind of racing through these. Okay, then the next thing I knit, I kind of got like this bee in my bonnet about scrap socks. There's a lady that I follow who's called Odd Sock Yarn, or Odd Sock House, I think, and I'll put the name at the bottom. and she does these like scrappy sock kits that you can buy from her and you can knit up socks. But I have a ridiculous sock scrap stash. You can ask my mom. I've been knitting socks since 2016. And so I knit a lot of socks, as you can tell, I knit a lot. And so I've just had so many scraps that I thought, like, I don't really need to buy a kit to make them. I can just use my own. So these are the socks that I knit. So basically what I did is I chose 20 colors from my stash that I thought would look nice together. And then I kind of jumbled them all in like a box, and then I would just pick randomly, like close my eyes and pick, or sometimes if my husband walked in the room, I'd say like, can you just pick one for me? And that's how I chose like which color came after, like the order of the stripes. So although like the actual colors I'd already made sure they'd look good together, the order of them is kind of like, I try to make it sort of random. And obviously I would like, if I picked one that was random but then it looked too similar to the previous sock, then I would like maybe choose not to use it. But yeah, that's what I did. And so these were knit on 2.5mm needles with the 80cm circular, so I could do magic loop. And these are actually knit in a 3x1 rib. So the top cuff is what I usually do, is a 2x2 rib, but then once I'd finished the portion that I wanted for the cuff, I then started a 3x1 rib, which I just kind of liked.
Yeah, it's very nice.
Thank you. Just like the pattern that it made.
Those colours go nicely too.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
They kind of remind me of sweeties.
Yes, they do look like sweeties. And so yes, because this is not a self-striping ball, I did have to weave in all the ends. But I actually really enjoyed it anyway. Like I thought that having all the ends to weave in would make me like really upset or whatever, but I kind of tried a number of techniques for weaving in the ends. Sometimes I knit the two ends together. So what you do is you have, like, let's say 6 inches left of your one color, and you're going to have 6 inches, like, well, no, so you have 6 inches left of your one color and you're starting your new color. So you just lay the ending end over the beginning end, if that makes sense, and you knit with them both at the same time. And so I did that for some of them before I wove them in. Some of them I just did the normal kind of like cut your end and then start a new one, and it has like a bit of a hole, and then you just like close it up at the end. I did try something which someone recommended where you like weave them in as you go. So what you do is you take your loose end and you like flop it forward and backward over the needle as you knit. But I didn't like that. For me, it made it kind of like tight, and you can kind of see where it is, like here.
So you did it horizontally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose it would make sense. Otherwise, you'd have this little coloured line.
But so I don't know if that's going to show up in the video. But it like, I didn't really like the way that worked. But there is a video by Winrick Mum, and she does it, and a couple of people do it. But I don't know if I was doing it wrong. But it just was not as stretchy as the other methods. And I don't know, I didn't really like the way it looked at the end. So so that was one of the ways I tried. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I tried for weaving in the ends. No, I think that was everything. That was everything I did. So in the end, I kind of decided that what I preferred to do is to do the knitting the ends together, but then I leave like a little bit on each end and still kind of weave those in, because the problem with not even weaving just like a few stitches in is that sometimes that end pokes through to like the outside of the work. So it's like the reason I wove the little end in was less for like security of making sure the sock didn't come apart, and more for just like that it looked nice and that it doesn't come out. Because obviously if you're a knitter and you see it come out, you're like, oh, I'll just poke it through to the other side, it's not a problem. But then sometimes you gift them to someone who's not a knitter, and then they're like, oh no, it's coming undone. So I've had that a couple of times. So yeah, that's what I did for these, and I loved these so much that immediately I was like, I want to make another pair. So what I decided to do is I decided I wanted to do something in like almost like a color palette. So instead of these, like these I chose, they're all kind of like random colors, but they're all the same sort of like intensity of color, so that I felt that they would match. But this the next pair of socks I wanted to do, I decided I wanted to do them where they would, all the colors would kind of work together. So this is when I asked my mom if she wanted another pair of socks, and she said yes. Surprise, surprise.
I'm addicted to your socks.
Oh, thank you. And so yeah, we just my mom kind of told me that she wanted them kind of like orangey, browny, pinky sort of colors, and then so I just went through what I had, and I chose some, and then my mom said that she liked them, and so I knit them up. So I'll put up a picture, and I can't believe how they turned out. They honestly, in my mind, it looks like a self-striping yarn.
It does.
I've told so many people, oh, these are scrappy socks or whatever, not meaning that in like a derogatory sense, like, oh, they're just scrappy, but like, oh, and they're like, no, those don't look scrappy at all. So anyway, so I really enjoyed knitting those, and I find knitting these scrappy socks, like, because I do, oh, this is something that I hadn't mentioned. What I do is that if it's like a solid color, I will only knit like 5 rounds in that color, but if it's a changing color, I'll knit 10 rounds in that color. And for some reason, just knitting through and like seeing how the color changed and knowing like, oh, okay, in like 2 rows, I'm going to change to a new color. Like, it just made the socks go so fast.
Yeah,
it was just like,
exciting.
Yes. So again, for my mom, I also did, so both my mom and myself take 64 stitches. And then both on 2.5 millimeter needles. And this is just, like I said, normal sock yarn. I can't say like for certain, but in general, they're all about 75%, 25, so 75% wool, 25% nylon. Sometimes it's like 80-20, but like in general, they're about 75-25.
Nice.
Thank you. Then another 2 projects, which I can't actually show you because I gave them away, is some gloves and a pair of socks for my sister-in-law. So I actually messaged her and asked her if she had a Christmas list, because, you know, a lot of times, like, I want to make sure that someone actually wants like what I'm making them, because, you know, I love knitted stuff, and there's certain people like my mom, I know I can always make her socks and she'll love them, but there's other people who you think like they were really like appreciative when I made them stuff, but I'm just not sure, like, I don't want to force stuff on them just because I like knitting. Like, knitting is an enjoyable thing for me, doesn't mean you want to receive it as a gift. So when I said to her, like, does she have a Christmas list, she actually said no, but she'd really, really love some gloves or some socks. So that made me happy, because then I knew I could make them for her and she'd actually want them. She actually helped me choose the colors and everything. So I'll start off with the socks. I knit her a pair of socks in the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and it's in the color Spruce. And I also did these as like a ribbed, because I have, for her, in my notes, it says either a 5 or a 6. And so I wasn't sure, like, I'd have to change between like 64 stitches or not. And I wasn't sure like about the length. So I thought if I do them in the ribbed, then if I do it 64 stitches and her foot's actually a little bit smaller, then it'll like, it'll be more elastic, and it'll like shrink onto her foot, if that makes any sense. And she did actually tell me afterwards that she really loves the ribbed ones. So I did the same thing that I did for my scrappy socks. I just did, once I'd finished the cuff, which was a 2x2 rib, I then changed into a 3x1 rib for the rest of the sock, except for the sole of the foot is just plain stockinette. So, and then those were just one color, no contrast heels or cuffs or anything, so those were pretty straightforward. And like I said, she really liked them. And then for the gloves, we used the Drops Merino Extra Fine, and that I believe is in the color Sage. And so she's like going for like a green wardrobe this winter. And I used the Sarah Basic Fingerless Knits. I think it should be mitts. I think I wrote that down wrong, but that's the pattern I use. I've used it before. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, so I can link to that if anyone's interested. And I used 3.5 millimeter needles. And the only change that I did do is that I did I decided to do a 2x2 rib instead of a 1x1 rib. The size that I chose, I haven't written down which size, but I think it was like the medium size. The size I chose, the numbers actually did add up to 4. So if you're doing a 2x2 rib, you need a stitch repeat of 4. Whereas if you're doing a 1x1 rib, you only need a stitch repeat of 2. And so because I was just really lucky that the size I chose to knit her was actually, it would fit into 4, and so I didn't have to worry about like sorting out like having an odd number, like, because if you don't do that, then you might land up with like 4 knit stitches next to each other, or 4 purl stitches next to each other if like you have the wrong number. So I'm not sure, like, if you chose to knit this pattern and you were using a different size, it might be an issue to do 2x2 rib. But for myself, I find that my 1x1 rib just looks kind of untidy. Like, my stitches always like pull apart, and so it just didn't look nice. And I just thought, you know, it'll be, I find that my 2x2 rib is much more elastic. So just a recap for anyone who doesn't know, stretchiness is the ability for something to get bigger, but elasticity is the ability for something to actually go back to its original shape. And so for my knits, I find that 2x2 is actually much more elastic than 1x1. It's just what happens when I knit. I don't know if it's the same for everyone else. And so yes, I just decided to do 2x2 rib. And so it's quite a long cuff, but my sister-in-law absolutely loved them. She said they fit perfectly, and she just loved everything about them. So yeah.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you. Then I do have some more things I can actually show you. I'm going on holiday to South Africa for a couple of weeks soon. I'm going back to see family, and there's a wedding I'm going to, and I actually have a nephew in Cape Town, and so I have knit him some hats. So this was actually requested by his mother. She really likes these like little ear flap hats. So this is one. And this is the other. And so he's actually like got the whole family thing. My husband has it too. He's got a really big head. So even though he's not 2 years old, she said, could I knit it in the 2-year-old size? And so the pattern I've used for this is actually the... Oh, yeah, no. The pattern I've used for this is the garter pom helmet, and as you notice, I haven't put the pom-pom on yet. I've just washed and blocked these, so they're just about dry and ready to have a pom-pom on. And I'm like not 100% sure, because I'm like, you know, babies sometimes like put it in their mouth and they can pull tufts out. But I did speak to my sister-in-law, and she did say that, you know, he's getting to the age where he doesn't really, like, if she tells him not to chew on his clothes, he's like not gonna do it. So anyway, so I might put like a little pom-pom on. But so this is the original pattern. You see it's all like garter stitch. Whereas I decided to knit it in 2 sizes, because the one size was 12 to 24 months, 24 obviously being 2 years old. The other pattern was 2 to 4 years old. So she had said, could I do a 2-year-old size? So I thought, you know what, baby knits, especially hats, are so quick, I'll just do 2. And so this is the second one I did. It's slightly larger, but as you can see, I decided to do it not in garter stitch.
That's nice.
Thank you. And I decided to do just like, so the ear flaps on garter stitch and a different color, and then I changed back to the lighter grey, and then I did it just in stockinette. And the reason for this was that the original hat that my sister-in-law had, that my nephew grew out of, it wasn't garter stitch, okay, but I can see from the picture there's like a seam up the back, so it was knit flat. And so I had tried to find a pattern that was the same, but I don't know, I put in the keywords that it was knit flat, and so I think the reason this came up is because when you're doing the ear flaps are knit flat, but then they have you join in the round, and I don't really like knitting garter stitch in the round, because then you're knitting and purling. It's just like, why am I doing this? The other thing is that you can actually see there's like a little bit of a seam up here, where because when you knit in the round, you're actually knitting in a spiral, so where you're changing between your knit and your purl row, it actually creates like a little bit of a line. Which is why I decided that for the second hat, I was just going to knit it in stockinette, so that you wouldn't have that happen, and I could just knit and I wouldn't have to purl. Win-win. So yeah, these are the hats for my nephew.
It's nice to have that little edging as
Oh,
well.
yes. Oh, so I didn't mention that. So this is not actually part of the pattern. I've just done a crochet edging. I've actually done it around both. So this one I just used the dark gray. Partially because the in the stockinette, the split above the head of the face has a tendency to kind of curl up, but also because the original hat that my sister-in-law sent me a picture of did seem to have, I don't know if it was an I-cord edging or if it was a crochet edging, but it did seem to have some sort of edging, so I just added that on. And the plan is that if I do add the pom-pom to this, it'll be blue to match the edging. Oh, and so these are knit out of Stylecraft special DK special DK yarn. I'm getting all like tongue tied. And basically I decided to do them out of acrylic because it's for a baby and it's going to get washed a lot and you don't want to have any allergies or anything like that. So that's why I decided to do it out of acrylic.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. I mean, it is like a little bit of a concern these days with like microplastics and stuff, and I am like a little bit worried about that. But she did say he's not going to be like chewing on the stuff, and like I said, like it'll be so much easier for her to wash them if they're not in wool. So these are the hats, and then I think my final project is a pair of socks for my sister-in-law. So these are the socks.
Yes, they're lovely.
Thank you.
Now, is that self-striping?
Yes. So
wow.
This is the interesting thing about these. So it's just like a complete fluke, but the yarn that I chose for the contrast heel, cuff, and toe is like almost the exact same color. It just, as you can see, it stripes up differently.
Yeah.
But the colors like just match. So I don't know if I can get that closer, but they just match so perfectly. But the interesting thing is that when you pick up the stitches for the heel, you have a different number of stitches, and so the pattern behaves differently. And as I decreased, it made this like boomerang shape across here. So it basically, when the stitches were larger number, the spiral was slanting this way, and then as I decreased, the spiral started slanting this way. And so at some point it does like a turnaround. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah.
I don't know what she'll think, but I actually really like it. And so it's the same on both, in the same place,
That's
front
amazing.
and back. But yeah, so these are self-striping. The contrast color is a Regia yarn. It's one of the Erica Knight colorways. And then the main color is a brand called Teddy Cozy Toes. So I had actually never seen this yarn before. I'd never heard of it, but I went into a yarn store. I think it's when we went up to Elgin on holiday. I went into a yarn store and I just saw this yarn and I was like, I've never heard of this brand. I just have to try it. And it's really nice. It's a lovely, it's not, yeah, it's not too like rough or anything.
Yeah, it feels soft.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really happy with these. So these are also 64 stitches on a 2.5 millimeter needle, 80 centimeter circular, and I think that's everything I have to say about them. So yeah, these are ready to go and be gifted, and I'm very happy with them. So that is it for all of my finished objects. What do you have to show us as a finished object?
At first when you said, come on the podcast, I was like thinking, I've just got the skirt because, I hurt my wrist again.
Yes.
And so, but actually I've got this. Now this has got a bit of a history because I bought this yarn, this nice fluffy part, for my mother, and she was going to knit it up, but she was actually getting really old, and I think she didn't even know how to read a pattern. So then I got you to knit this bit.
Yes.
Well, you actually knitted the other bit as well. But then the other bit was light, probably this colour here, and I just found for me I wanted a bit more contrast. And then on top of it, I was starting to get that skin irritation on my face, and so I chose to knit it in more of a cottony And I was thinking, oh my goodness, this is either going to work or it's going to be an absolute fail. And on top of it, I like using up your scraps.
Yes.
So the green, I think, was your scraps,
Oh, yes.
and the light blue's actually an old scarf that I'd crocheted in cotton. So I added it, and I went off in this direction. That's kind of how the pattern did sort of go.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't have the pattern with me, but I just copied.
Yes.
And I added this piece of ribbon in over there where I started it to kind of make some sort of like showy feel. I think I'll put it on because I think it looks, I was thinking, this is cotton, this is mohair, how's it going to work? But actually when you wrap it around you, it mixes.
Yes.
And I think because also the colours, it picks up the darker colour there. So I'm very happy with it. And then this cottony bit is close to my neck, so I'm not feeling the scratchy mohair, but I love the look of mohair. So I'm very happy with it. And
let me hold it a bit closer to the camera. So hopefully this goes in focus.
Yeah, and so I just thought now, I actually haven't even finished off the threads. That's sort of like who I am. I saw that the pattern went that you knit in a different direction.
Yes.
And I've never ever done that before. So I don't even know if I did it correctly or not, but I just picked up the stitches along the one side. And no, I didn't. Sorry. I knitted this way, long line. Yes. And then hooked onto there and knitted back and then kept doing that. Is that how you did it? Can't remember.
I'm not sure. I've actually got the pattern here.
Oh, okay.
Let's see.
Yeah, because I didn't know what I was doing, but I was just hoping.
No. So I don't want to give too much away because this is a paid for pattern.
Oh, okay.
But that's not how it was done. I'll just say that. It's not how it was done. But it looks lovely.
I'm happy with it. Yeah. So that is my other finished object. And then I started a jersey and then my wrists swelled up. I thought, oh my goodness, it's because of the knitting pearl, because I'd only been knitting in the rounded knitting plain.
Yes.
But actually thinking back to it, I'd got this tennis elbow after chopping 2 bags of almonds one evening
for Christmas pudding.
With cinnamon, yeah. I'm like, okay, maybe that was a little bit enthusiastic.
Yes.
So I gave it a rest.
Yes. Oh, that's good. And you're feeling better.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Another thing I finished was actually this project bag. So this is not actually a knitting thing. This is a sewing thing, which I don't do very often. But I don't know if anyone else feels like I do, but often I need my project bags to match my project. Like, I just want the colors to be the same or to work together or whatever. And so yeah, just for me, it makes me really happy when my project bags match. And I have a lot of summery project bags and I don't have very many like wintry ones. And so I did cut out a few other ones that I was going to sew up, but then our house got really cold. We had like an insane cold snap and I just didn't feel like sewing. So this is the one that I've actually finished. And so obviously this is a Christmassy one. And so this is what I knit. I used when I was knitting my sister-in-law's socks. You can actually see there's the spruce yarn that's left over.
That's nice.
So
it matches the zip almost.
Oh yes, yeah. The colours are very similar.
Yeah.
And then it has, so let me hold this up close. So that is the outside, and then on the inside I have this other Christmassy fabric going on here. And these were just fat quarters that I bought, I think probably from Hobbycraft, but I bought them quite a while ago. So that's the project.
You made my project bag as well, or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I did actually, I don't have it here to show, but I did make for my mom for Christmas as part of her gift. I made her a notions pouch to just keep like sewing needles and stitch markers and scissors or whatever, so it's not like floating around your bag. I made her a notions pouch, and I actually made it using fabric from some trousers for my grandmother. So my grandmother passed away in 2019, and so we still have quite a bit of her clothing, but maybe it doesn't fit us or it's not really our style, but it was still like really sentimental and we didn't want to get rid of it. And so I actually said to my mom, like, hey, why don't I make you a project bag out of it? So I made a notions pouch for my mom using part of the leg of her trousers.
It's a nice memory. I used to like those trousers on her.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so for works in progress, I'll start off with my car knitting. So I like knitting vanilla socks because, and for those of you who don't know, vanilla socks are just like plain unpatterned no stitch pattern socks that are just kind of straight knitting, because I don't really have to think about it and I can do it when I'm chatting to someone. If I have someone over for tea, I can just knit and I don't have to think about what I'm doing. I can just talk. Or if we're driving in the car, I don't really have to look at my hands, because I do actually get car sick if I read or if I use my phone or whatever, but I can actually knit because I don't need to look at my hands. So that's why I call these my car knitting socks. So these were actually cast on quite a while ago. You can see them. Oops, lots of ends and things. So they're like these lovely bright purples, pinks and blues, sort of greeny as well. And I have this super cute stitch marker from Crafty Cat Knitty Bits. And so the black, or the contrast color I'm using, is a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn, and it's called Licorice, which I think is quite appropriate. And then the main color is this King Cole Zigzag, and the color is Butterfly. It's also got a code which is 4811. So as you can see, I haven't got very far on these because they're not really like a project that I'm like trying to finish. They're just there for me. If I'm going somewhere and I don't have something else to knit on, then I will knit these. Whereas like we actually were recently in the car for quite a while, but I actually had these socks that I was knitting for my sister-in-law, and so I didn't need these car knitting socks. So like I said, I started these I think early in December, and they haven't really got much done, but they're just there for me in emergency.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's 64 stitches on a 2.5mm needle, and that is my car knitting. Do you have any works in progress that you want to show us?
Well,
you're working on something right now.
So I like recycling and upcycling. That's part of who I am. And I bought this jersey, so this is not a handmade jersey, and it's got quite a short body. And
do you want me to try and hold it
I
up?
think
you hold on to your crochet hook.
okay.
There we go.
And then the long arms are like too long, so it's really weird. So what I decided, I've either got to give it away, or because I like this nice soft fabric. So
what's it made out of? Do we know?
I'm not sure. I think it's synthetic.
I can't find the English. Have I missed it? Was it right? Yeah. So it's 64% polyester and 30% acrylic and 6% wool.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I thought I'd give it a shot. I've seen on YouTube how someone else made theirs longer, and so basically I'm crocheting into every. It's a 2 plain 2 purl rib, and I'm crocheting once into each rib piece. And then I'm going to pick up the stitches here and knit down.
Oh yes,
a
very
rib,
nice. Yes.
But not obviously, but I'm going to make it so that it draws it in a little bit.
Yes.
And then I'm actually going to shorten the sleeve, and I'm going to do the same. I'm going to add the same because it's not
Yes.
exactly the same colour.
Yeah.
So I want to just finish it off, and then
Yeah.
I'm probably going to do something at the
Round
neck
and round.
area too, because it's got a very strange neck. So I think I'm going to shorten the neck and just edge it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's...
We hold that up closer as well.
Yeah. You can...
Make sure. Oops. There we go. So you can see the crochet, the right side is facing you. It's a nice edging. So this looks like you're doing a UK treble or an American double crochet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so that is what I'm busy with at the moment. I did start something else, but and let me see. I had I've only got the swatch. It's green, and I'm quite fond of green. It's a variegating green. So there's also actually a little bit of pink and rust in it if you knit further. And I'm knitting myself a jersey that is a replica of another jersey that I started and then my mother finished.
Yeah.
And I'm busy following the shape of the jersey as a pattern. Yeah. But that's the one that gave me all the trouble. Or not, I started getting trouble with my wrist, so I'm busy thinking about possibly knitting that in the round and not making, because it is actually a cardigan.
You could steek it.
Steek? What's that?
Ooh, lovely! Something we can talk about. So steeking is where usually you'll knit a few extra stitches wherever you want the steek to be, and then you cut it. So you knit it in the round. So people make blankets and stuff because it's quite common with fair isle because or stranded colorwork. Because stranded colorwork is much easier to knit in the round. And so what you do is you knit your whole thing in the round, and then you cut it up where you've made these extra steek stitches, and then you fold them over and you sew them down.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a really good idea. Yeah. So that will be a project after I finish this one.
Yes.
And that's all I'm doing.
Oh. I have a couple more projects to talk about. I have some socks that I'm knitting for my husband, and he has a lot of socks. Both my husband and I pretty much only wear hand knit socks now. We don't knit commercial socks. We don't wear commercial socks. Largely, I mean, we do love hand knit socks, and we do think they keep your feet so warm, and they like wick moisture away, so if you've gone exercising they like don't get sweaty and they don't get smelly, and they're amazing. But also I will never stop knitting socks.
I'll tell you something about how amazing your socks are. When I had my ankle up, I was told at one stage I could take the dressing off, but I had to wear a pair of socks twice and like change them twice a day and wash them, and it was just normal. They didn't say wear cotton socks or woolen socks, but I read up about it, and I really found the woolen socks were really great for keeping my wounds clean, and it healed really nicely.
Thank you. I didn't know that. Thank you. Well, they do say that wool does have antimicrobial properties, so that makes a lot of sense. That's amazing. So I'm not going to stop knitting socks, and so there's just no point in us buying normal socks if I'm just going to be keeping producing them. But anyway, the point was that the husband has lots and lots of normal socks, but he's only got, I think, 2 or 3 pairs of short socks, and so he really wants more short socks. So here's one of them that I've finished. And so I didn't actually follow a pattern. This is kind of like my own pattern, but it is based on a pattern called the Rose City Roller Socks. And so that's where you don't knit a ribbed cuff. You just knit like plain stocking knit, which naturally wants to roll in on itself. And so I knit, I think the original Rose City Rollers say like 1 inch, but for husband I like to do 2 inches, so I did 2 inches before I started, and I have knit both this rolled cuff, and I have knit, sorry, a cat's gonna jump on the other cat, Jack. I have knit husband both these rolled version of the socks, and I have knit them where I've done like a ribbed cuff, and he actually says he prefers the rolled ones, and so that is what, what I've decided to do.
What are all the markers underneath for?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. So when I first started knitting socks, I always just knit them like, and I would have a foot tracing and I'd just knit them until I could fit it on the foot tracing and be like, okay, that's done. I'm not counting stitches. But recently, I don't know why, but I've just got the urge that when I knit, because I think it's because so many people that I knit for, I knit 64 stitches in circumference. So I am like between a size 6 and a size 7, and I do 64 stitches. You are?
I think between size 5 and 6.
Between 5 and 6, I knit 64 stitches. But do remember that sizes are weird, because when we buy shoes, we're described how we're going to have like a long or narrow or wide shoe.
Yeah.
And so my foot is actually quite, like, I think both you and I have quite wide feet. And so we need 64 stitches because we have wide feet, but we don't actually need very long socks, because so I knit 64 stitches, but for you and I don't make them as long as I would for a size 7 shoe.
Yes.
Whereas husband has a size 7 shoe, and so he has 64 stitches, but his is much longer because his foot is not as wide compared to how long it is as ours are.
Yeah.
So that's just what made me start thinking, all these people I'm knitting 64 stitches for. I want to see how long I'm knitting them. And so this is actually from when I did, and it's quite easy to tell because I've got contrasting heel and toe, from when I picked up the heel stitches to until when I started the toe decreases. I did 77 stitches, rounds, or rows of these. So that's why these markers are here every 10.
Yes.
So it makes it easier to count. And that's the thing, like, when I first started knitting socks and I didn't want to count, I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to have to count each one. Whereas actually, it's quite easy to just count 10 rows,
Yes.
slip in a marker, carry on knitting, and then when you think you've done like another 15, just count 10, put in another marker, and it's actually quite easy.
Yes.
So that's what I've been doing. And that's why they're there. But yeah, so this is another pair of shorty socks for my husband, and like I said, we're about to go on holiday to Cape Town, so these will come in handy. Yeah.
And what are they knitted also? The same mixture?
Yes. So thank you for asking. I almost forgot. So this green, the main color, is Wonderful Wool. And it doesn't actually have a colorway. It was actually part of like a surprise box. There was someone on Etsy, Wonderful Wool was busy selling these kits, which were like a cat box. So everything that came with it was cat themed. There were like some cat stitch markers and like a treat for my cats and stuff. It was really cute, and like some pictures and stuff. But anyway, part of it was a colorway that was dyed up, and it was this green colorway, but I think it was just dyed up for that giveaway, so it didn't actually have like a name on it.
Okay.
But it is a sock yarn. And so yeah, that's what we have here. And I have actually, if you remember previously, I actually knit those helical socks for husband out of the same green, but because they were helical, I didn't use like that much, and so there was totally enough. I think there was like 59 or 50 something grams left, which was more than enough to knit these like shorty socks out of. Whereas the contrast, which like I've said, I've only done it for the heel and the toe, not for the cuff, because with these shorty socks, like, it's just not, I don't know, I just didn't, it felt right just to do these two. And this is the same yarn that I used for my sister-in-law's, which is that Vergia, which was the design line by Erica Knight. So yeah.
Yes, nice.
Thank you. Okay. I think that's everything I have to say about those. And then my final thing that I'm working on is not actually knitting or crochet, it's actually some spinning. And so quite a while ago, I think it was just before Christmas, my husband ordered a kilogram of fiber from this was, I believe, from Wing and Wool Works. And so let me just take a little bit out. Whoops. So you can have a look. So this is 100% merino fiber, and they have on Wing and Wool Works, they have this thing where you can choose to have like a blend made. And so I believe it's £20 for 500 grams. And husband wanted a jumper, and so 500 grams just wasn't enough. We need like 650, 700 grams. So we just bought a kilogram because you can only buy it in 500 gram amounts. And he chose this collection of blues. He's actually, you can name your colorway. What's wrong?
No, and you did ask me whether I wanted,
Yes.
and I was struggling so much because I didn't know how it was going to spin up.
Yes.
Now that I've seen it, I'm thinking, I know what colours I'm busy percolating, which colours I'm going to choose. And so you're going to have more spinning.
Yes, yes. Well, good thing I love spinning. So you can actually name your colorway when you choose your colors. I think you can choose between like 4 and 6 colors or something like that.
Yeah.
And he named it Then We Take the Blues, which is actually, he was listening to a Leonard Cohen song at the time, and there's a line which says, and then we take Berlin. I think first we take Manhattan. Yes, first we take Manhattan, then we take Berlin. So it's called Then We Take the Blues.
Oh, that's very nice.
Yeah. And so I have been spinning that up. I actually spun kind of a test spin to see if I wanted to do it in a 2-ply or a chain ply. And I did decide to do it in a 2-ply. So this is what I have spun up so far. So we have these 4 skeins. They actually have not yet been washed or anything. They're just, I spun them up, plied them up, and then put them into these skeins. But so they still need to be washed and everything. But I think I have about 300 almost. No, I have about 400 grams here. So we're getting close, probably like another 200 or 300 grams, and then we can start knitting the jumper. Which husband has actually already designed the jumper himself, which I was like super impressed with.
I'm wanting to know when he's going to start knitting.
That's the funny thing. I did actually try and teach him to knit, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because he's predominantly like a woodworker for hobbies and stuff, but he grips the needles so tight that he gives himself hand cramp. He can't knit because he just like grips onto them so tightly. But I don't mind because I love knitting, and I love the fact that he designs his own jumpers and stuff and asks me to knit them. So yeah, this is really exciting, and I'm really happy with how it's coming up. I do actually prefer spinning stuff which comes out like more like variegated or slightly more stripy. So what I think it is that I think if you look at this fiber, all the stripes kind of go like vertically, whereas when you have like a braid of yarn that was dyed so this was blended, if it was dyed, the colors tend to go in bands like horizontally. And so I think that that's like just my preference. Not that I wouldn't spin this, obviously I'm spinning a lot of this, but I just think I personally like it when you see those color changes coming out, whereas with this, these are like pretty uniform. All of them look very, very similar. I mean, I am interested to see how it knits up, that it might be a bit more mottled, but they are on the whole like pretty uniform. And so that's what I have for works in progress.
Yeah. Good.
Hi.
I can't wait to see the jersey.
Oh, yes, me too. Very last thing I have to talk about is that, obviously, I keep mentioning it, we're going to Cape Town, we're going back to South Africa, and so I haven't really made any solid plans, but I just keep thinking, what am I going to knit? Obviously, there is like a 12-hour flight there.
Are you allowed to knit on the plane?
So I have in the past. So what I do, this is a great tip for everyone else out there. First of all, go and check your airline and see if they have any rules. Usually, like what I've done in the past, it says that it's up to the discretion of the security officer. So obviously, don't take sharp like scissors or anything with you. Like that's going to be a no-no. But if you take your knitting, it's usually up to the security officer. So I have a few tips. The one is, if you can, try and use wooden needles, because those obviously are not going to show up as much in the scans. Another thing is, always have your project cast on beforehand, because they might say like, because I mean your knitting needle can, I mean it can kind of look like some sort of weapon, like those things they used to strangle people. Like, I think it's called a garrote.
Oh yeah, the circular needles.
Yeah, the circular needles would totally look like that. And so they might say like, well, are you really going to knit with it? Or like they might say like, prove that you're going to knit or whatever.
Yes.
So I think that having, like, usually I'm knitting socks when I'm on the plane, so I just have the cuff cast on. I haven't done the rest of it, but I got the cuff cast on. So then they know like, yes, I am actually legitimately going to be knitting with this. And then also if you're not, even if you are taking wooden needles, but like, so often I won't take wooden needles because I do actually grip my needles quite tight, and so I find that the wooden ones feel like they're bending in my hands. But I will just take like my oldest, cheapest pair of like sock needles that I don't mind. Like if they do tell me you have to get rid of them, then like that's just too bad. I'm just gonna have to buy another pair.
Yeah.
But I have flown with my knitting needles, I think 3 or 4 times, and it's never ever been a problem. They've never even taken it out of my hand luggage. They've never asked me what is this or anything. Wow. And the one time, oh my goodness, I actually flew with some scissors. Are they next to you? Are there some? Yeah.
Those nice pretty ones.
So my husband bought me these scissors as a present, and they're super cute. And like, look at that. That's a stabby stab if I ever saw one, right? And so we get through security, and I, like, on the other side, I hate flying on my own. I was actually flying with my sister. We get through security, I sit down to knit, and I pull, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I can't believe I have these on me. And I'm just freaking out to the point that my sister says, okay, don't worry, just put it in my bag and I'll take it for you. Because I was just freaking out so bad that I had these scissors with me. But as you can see, I still have them. They didn't even take these away from me.
That's amazing.
I know. I feel like I just had like a guardian angel watching over me that day, and they just let me take it. But yeah, no, I don't try and take your scissors with you. Just keep it to the needles, and be sure that it is something that if you had to throw away, you could throw it away or like give it to them. But I have actually honestly never had a problem. So, and I take small projects like socks and things, so it's not going to be big and bulky. Yeah. I use circular needles. You don't want to be like stabbing the person next to you or anything.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm probably going to be taking socks with me. I would kind of love to take the scrappy socks with me, do some more scrappy socks, but that's going to be like a lot of little balls and things. I feel like I should keep something more compact, but I definitely will still be doing contrast heels and toes because I just generally enjoy knitting socks more. When I find if it's all one color, it just is too boring. Yeah. Like I like to have something interesting, so I will probably be bringing that. I definitely have some plans to buy some more South African yarn when I'm over there. Very excited for that. I even have some friends who have asked me if I can maybe get them some, so we'll be sorting that out. But yeah, we're there for a whole 3 weeks, and so I definitely feel like I need to take some knitting with me.
Yeah.
It will be summer, so definitely, again, ignoring the fact that socks are the best for traveling, it's also probably the best for not getting all like hot and sweaty or whatever. But yeah, I haven't actually made any solid plans for what socks I'm knitting. Yeah.
It's going to be a surprise.
Yes. And I'll definitely try and maybe take some extra footage while I'm on holiday to bring.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Bring back for the podcast, especially like we're definitely gonna go to the Nordok. There's a, what is that yarn shop called at the Nordok Farm Village?
Isn't it called the yarn?
It's not like natural yarn.
Natural yarn.
Is it natural yarn?
Natural yarn.
Natural yarn.
At Elliementalist.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll if they'll let me, I'll take some footage in the shop or whatever for the podcast, and you guys can all see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's everything. Do you have anything else you want to add? Hopefully your hands. I mean, you're busy crocheting. How's the crocheting? How's your hand feeling?
It's absolutely fine.
Oh, that's good. That's
good.
But
I will rest it lots.
Yes, you do need to. Having repetitive strain injuries is just the worst.
Yeah.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's everything for this time. Hopefully we will be able to do it again next month. Oh, no, we're not.
What's happening next month?
Well, you are leaving for South Africa the day after I come back from South Africa in February.
For a month.
For a month.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe we'll be able to add like a little bonus episode if you've just got like some footage that you can, if you upload it to like Google Drive or whatever, then I can like compile it. So we'll just have like a weird, not a weird podcast, but just like a bonus episode of just like some clips from the next month or whatever. Otherwise, it will not be in February, it'll be in March when we're back together again. Okay, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like. That really helps us know that you want us to keep going, and share it with your friends. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, crisis
Tense moment.
crisis averted.